It is May 3rd, 1942, and after the successful conquest of the city of Grozny, Axis forces have turned their eyes to their next strategic prize. The city of Stalingrad and the battle for her has begun. This German offensive begins in the rain, even as the weather reports for next week still show rain across the entire map. So there will be mud for him to deal with to some extent, but he doesn't really seem perturbed by that. And honestly, I'm really not sure why it would be, because his turn begins with a series of 3 attacks, all southwest of Stalingrad, right at my somewhat strong front line. He wins this rather easily, routs a good 6-7 divisions, and doesn't really use much of his combat strength doing it. So I'm going to have to scramble here to form up some defense to slow him down, or potentially retreat to the city itself, although it might be a little too premature to do just that. In the south, after willingly giving up the town of Sukhumi, Russian forces along the Black Sea coastline have avoided any battles this week. It's in the east near the recently conquered town of Grozny that Axis forces send 2 motorized divisions through the lines of the Russian forces. This does result in about 20 kilometers of terrain taken over, as they ultimately move towards Makakala. Yes, I tried to pronounce it. Well, I will admit this is a little bit more of an action-oriented turn than I thought it would be, with the upcoming mud, which does not bode well for when I get my turn back. But the ending result does still put me in a position to make a certain amount of decisions and to try to keep a unified line. And this is basically all I'm able to really do at this point in time. Now, thankfully, this is the turn where I do get 150,000 reserves. So this, coupled with my normal manpower increase, does see a significant uptick on the amount of men that are on the map. So that will help. Also, my AFV is finally starting to rise. Still a little worried with when they actually see combat with the Germans, because they don't really hold up. That also holds true for my aircrafts. My Air Force is in pretty nice shape at this point in time. Unfortunately, the last thing I want to do is really use it. But use it I must. So the only areas on the map where I am going to use it is these southeastern, near Astrakhan, near Grozny herself, because A, he has a lack of airfield, so he can't use much of his Luftwaffe in response. B, the weather's not quite as bad, so hopefully we'll cut down on operational losses. Now, it's a 7-day campaign due to this, so I still receive my fair share of operational losses. But all in all, I mean, the flak losses are low, and the air combat is almost non-existent. So, I mean, I do consider it to be a success at this point in time. And, I mean, they are, once again, all the biplane tactical bombers. So, I'm not sure the way the mechanics work as to how accurate they are and how much damage they do. But, I mean, the results aren't bad. I mean, I want more, but it's still manageable, and I'll replicate these losses. No, not in the pilots, but I mean, I think the whole point of biplanes is they're expendable. Switching to the ground, though, looking at what I'm facing after these series of 3 combats, it becomes clear that a lot of my divisions are at strength 1. This will make it difficult to fill in the lines and proceed further in the next week, but I am hopeful that getting them back towards the city itself and refitting that it's only temporary, because the battle's lost 4,000 men. That should be easily replaced. The guns and the tanks also should be. Losing the aircraft is unfortunate, because I do not remember putting a ground support mission on in this area. So whatever triggers them to do that automatically, I have to address. So the other decision I make this week is to replace the Green Army that was involved in these battles with new leader Ivan Konev. Admin of 7, plus being in the assault front, should help him refit faster. So hopefully these units will be ready in a couple weeks. I then proceed to move units down to fight back on this little 2-2 division, to where if I can at least get some success here, it'll It'll help slow him down as he continues to progress towards Stalingrad herself. Now, I once again see that my fighter airplanes are getting triggered to go into the actual combat scene, which is not what I want. So that will be something that I look on my next turn. So the rest of the turn that I do off camera is continuing to reorganize my army fronts, because there's too many that are at a limit, like the Western Front, and they don't have the ability to really split. Meanwhile, I got like the areas east of Leningrad only have 46 out of 81 or whatever the numbers are. So I need to spread that out, and so I do address a lot of that off camera. Down here, though, with the 50th and 44th armies trying desperately to hold this line, I do need to figure out what I'm going to do with this. Now, ultimately, I decide to attack the weakened 3-3 motorized division, the 14th, and hit it due to the fact that it's low on supply, and it's, if I'm able to get in there, then I might be able to surround the 4-4. Unfortunately, his zone of control does prevent that. So this will force me to scramble at this point in time. I have a command problem down here. I obviously have a lot of problems in this area, but I only have these two armies and they're already maxed out. So this will force me to leave some of these divisions not under an army, remaining under Stavka, which will give them severe negatives. So I'm going to fake like I have a line down here. The gamble here is to just buy time before I retreat to the defensive lines that I've been preparing for the last several weeks to 2 months. I am surprised we're not level 3 yet, but it might still happen in the next couple turns. And if that does, that'll make this area at least somewhat defensible. And then if I can get semi-dual layered here, even if it's Stavka taking the rear, maybe I can actually get level 1 forts behind it so that it will make this a lot harder for him to conquer. Ultimately, he has taken all his objectives. So when I'm staring at it at the end of my turn, it's not at all anymore a point of contention for the war itself. He's succeeded down here. If I can keep his units fighting here, then they aren't fighting somewhere else. So that is the recap for turn 46. I'm going to hand it back to my opponent and get ready for May 10th.